Greetings, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in. Tonight, we'll continue our reading of Brainwashed by Tom Burrell. We're on chapter 11, which begins on page 233 with a quote from Jamila Lemieux, dated September 11th, 2009, to NPR, saying, Dear Mr. Perry, I appreciate your commitment to giving Black folks jobs in front of and behind the camera, but both your shows are marked by old stereotypes full of buffoonish, emasculated Black men and crass, sassy Black women. I'd like to support your work. I really would. But I can't let advertisers and networks think that these stereotypes are acceptable. The title of this chapter is called Neocoons. Why is the joke always on us? Jamila Lemieux's open letter to the writer, director, and producer Tyler Perry received nationwide attention in late 2009 after NPR posted it on its website. In the letter, Lemieux thanked Perry for his humor and his positive messages about self-worth, love, and respect. However, she took issue with the images of Black people Tyler Perry presents in his TV shows and movies, saying, Your most famous character, Medea, is a trash-talking, pistol-waving grandmother played by none other than you. Through her, the country has laughed at one of the most important members of the Black community, Mother Dear, the beloved matriarch. I just can't quite get with seeing Mother Dear played by a 6'3" man with prosthetic breasts flopping in the wind. Our mothers and grandmothers deserve much more than that. Heck, our fathers and grandfathers deserve more. Lemieux acknowledged that Perry had built an empire on the foundation of love and Christianity, but she added, his work is mired in the worst Black pathologies and stereotypes. She ended her letter urging Perry to examine his contributions, shift his priorities, and use his talent and Hollywood clout to revolutionize the world of Black film. Lemieux's open letter is not only relevant to this book, but it also reflects another calamity resulting from our unconscious addiction to the Black inferiority brand. Greetings, KW Don 7. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm so glad you're here. We're on page 234 of Brainwashed. First, her missive serves as an example of 21st century advocacy. Lemieux used the media to call attention to a perceived problem. Her comment, I can't let advertisers and networks think that these stereotypes aren't acceptable, gives those who share her concern a viable course of redress. Lastly, she didn't erect barriers with a wholesale trashing of Perry. Instead, Lemieux respectfully encouraged him to be a pioneer in the game instead of just another player. In short, she urged Perry to be his best self. Still, as much as I support self-responsibility, it's not entirely fair to expect Perry to chart a new course alone. His movies and TV shows would not be so successful if Blacks didn't have a raging appetite for messages and images that project us as dysfunctional or incompetent. Nothing that occurred during Amos and Andy's radio and television reign could match the words and actions of Black comedies like Medea and the Browns. Our attraction to self demeaning images came way before and goes far beyond. Tyler Perry. The Nouveau Coon starts with a quote from D.L. Hughley, who says, I don't know how I'm gonna stop saying nigger when it describes motherfuckers I know so perfectly well. Everybody knows that one motherfucker that can only be described as that nigga there. God damn. A deep rooted addiction to the Black inferiority brand allows us to laugh at the antics of Black entertainers who call us niggas and denigrate Black men and women in comic routines, songs, and music videos. Woven into the Black American experience is a strong thread of avoidance, an aversion to critical thinking, and an abnormal embrace of anything that appeals to our emotions rather than our reasoning. The unspoken trauma of pain and powerlessness has led too many of us to prefer laughter to learning and pretending over mending. These impulses, mixed with our damaged psyches, have left us ripe for exploitation. If a comedian, actor, or film director strums our emotional chords, we tolerate all sorts of sour notes. In reality, many of these talented, creative, charismatic individuals assume the role of neo-coons, modern day jesters, and clown princes. They provide superficial, short term pain relief that impedes permanent healing. Greetings, Sister Raw, and the elders listening with you. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're on page 235 of Brainwashed, talking about the neocoons. And I'll add to this that they want our celebrity class to be our leaders because they have allowed them to economically ascend to heights most of us could only dream of. The reality is that the color in this country isn't green, it is black and white, but they trick them into thinking that the color is green because they give them so much money. This chapter examines why we choose to laugh instead of think. We will examine comedy and the role comedians who are responsible for some of the degrading images of Black folks that we see across a variety of today's media platforms. Blacks themselves took over the job of self ridicule over a century ago. Our goal, our goal is to understand how this phenomenon can be. We will also explore the disturbing side of our human need to laugh and how we've come to rely on funny men who too often support the marriage of white superiority and Black inferiority. What's good for the group? Since its beginning, the American mass marketing and propaganda system has been the envy of the world. Its unheralded achievement has been creating and sustaining an almost 44-century long campaign that has the American public not only accepting, but also applauding anything that reinforces the original Black inferiority brand identity. For 45 years, I was engaged in the field of systematic persuasion, convincing people through mass communication to buy a product, buy a service, or buy an idea. In almost all cases, that means the means by which people are convinced to buy rarely has anything to do with reason or logic. And humor is one of the most powerful tools in the arsenal of persuasive communication. Humor is used to distract, control, and keep people from pondering too long or thinking too critically. For too many of us, our minds are on long term disability while our emotions are pulling double shifts. Humor has become our way of coping with our sense of degradation, and nothing is off the table. We laugh about slavery, we joke about lynching, and even chuckle about police brutality or the shooting of unarmed Black people. Can you visualize any other oppressed group joking about its own oppression? Imagine if Jewish comedians incessantly used the word kike or told concentration camp jokes. Why, there would be a crisis alert among Jews. Public and behind the scenes pressure would be mobilized immediately to call out the offensive Jewish comedians' material or swiftly end their careers. Yet, with Blacks, this type of incendiary material receives cheers and roarous applause approval. To those within the audience outside the cusp of consciousness, the material is perfectly acceptable. It must be okay to laugh at our woes, they reason, because everybody else is laughing. With groupthink, the goal is to make buyers believe they are not alone, that they are part of the popular in crowd. So it's fine to laugh at self deprecating humor. Still, some things that are obviously bad contain a grain of truth that reflects a negative condition. Joking about it makes it less bad and unfortunately more true. Laughing too long and too hard starts with a quote from Cat Williams. Everything everywhere is comedy material. To watch and view the world via television, newspaper, movies, and music translate our world into funny. There is no subject where funny doesn't exist. Humor and entertainment are proven sedatives. We have been conditioned to disengage from anything resembling critical thinking. In an interview on The View, while promoting his film Medea Goes to Jail, Tyler Perry told the audience, "We need to laugh." We do, but we've laughed at some things long enough. Consider some of the topics Black comedians find funny. From Ari Spears. I really want to ask white people, why don't y'all beat y'all kids? Beat them. Whip they motherfucking ass. Y'all give y'all kids all kinds of time out in special places. What the fuck is a special place? To a Black child, that's a coma. From Bernie Mac. I'm from the old school. I'll kick a kid's ass. When a kid gets 1 year old, I believe you have the right to hit him in the throat or the stomach. If you grown enough to talk back, you grown enough to get fucked up. They were both talking about and making light of the fact that Black people, as a trauma response, beat their children more often than white people do. During the course of writing this book, I can recall numerous instances of Black children shaken to death, beaten, scalded, smothered, and otherwise tortured by adults. Why is the outcry against comedy? Where is the outcry against comedy that celebrates child abuse? From Dare Davis, a quote. Man, it's hard being an athlete. You got to run, jump, block, work out every day. That shit is just as bad as dodging child support. And another quote. from Kevin Hart. You know how you know when you lost a fight with your woman? When the cops come to your house and ask you, do you want to press charges? While Black families are mired in layers of dysfunction, we crack jokes about bitchy Black women, deadbeat dads, badass kids, and battling Black parents. A quote from Joe Torre. I bought a gun because powwow sounds a lot better than hey, put that back. As morgues and prisons fill with Black bodies from homicide shootings, we laugh as the jokester riffs about our threatening images, murder, and violence. As the math, reading, and literacy gaps widen between failing Black kids and other races, a smorgasbord of jokes celebrates and normalizes underachievement. A quote from Mike Epps. I'm a 1 year old bitch, but I know not to take this note home. This is a ass whooping you're pinning to my shirt. Black families suffer disproportionately from diabetes and obesity. Yet some Black female comedians ridicule so-called skinny Black bitches. As single parent homes, divorce rates, and a host of sexually transmitted diseases ravage Black lives, funny folks crack jokes about sexual promiscuity. A quote from Cheryl Underwood in her Death Comedy Jam special. I got caught in bed with my best girlfriend Peach's man. And that bitch gonna get mad and text at me and say, talking about Cheryl, what you doing? Bitch, I'm trying to help you. The nigga said if he don't get no pussy soon, he gonna leave your ass. And I'm a motherfucking friend to the end, goddammit. Another quote from Faison Love from a different Def Comedy Jam. My friend caught his wife fucking around. She told this motherfucker it just happened. You may just happen to slip and fall. You can just happen to wear a fucked up outfit, but you cannot just happen to get fucked. You can't just walk outside and say, oops, I done slipped in some pussy. As the economy tanks and the rates of Black poverty and unemployment worsen, we laugh at jokes about poverty and irresponsible spending. A quote from Cedric the Entertainer. For Black folks, credit means get it. If you got some credit, get it. I got 11 flat screen TVs in a 4-bedroom house. Millions of Black folks will wake up tomorrow so dumbed down, way down to some syndicated radio show. Most will crack up over a formulaic sitcom and reality show, or laugh until they cry in the comedy clubs and movie theaters when people who share their skin color serve as the butt of jokes. The way we act is no accident. I see it as the direct outcome of branding, brainwashing, and marketing program to keep Blacks anesthetized and distracted. Entertainment and humor, in its place, is harmless. However, when interwoven into our everyday interactions and substituted for critical social dialogue, it becomes self destructive because it promotes and perpetuates Black inferiority. What we need is more critical and more conscious comedy. We must learn to incorporate critical thinking when dealing with ourselves, our hangups and habits, and when dealing with the world that we live in. Then we will be able to better laugh through our problems. Therefore, as much as I admire Lemieux's individual stance, the task is much more daunting. Getting rid of one drug dealer will not eradicate drug addiction. The addict will simply find another source to abate and escape from the unfaceable or tolerate the intolerable. If we're going to address misplaced buffoonery, we must examine the genesis of the neocon and the trauma that fertilizes his or her prominence in today's society. Calling Dr. Feelgood starts with a quote from Sterling, an LA comedian. Look, my job is to make motherfuckers laugh, to make them feel good. Had a bad day? Go to the comedy club. Need to forget all the shit that's wrong with your sorry ass life? Come laugh with me. Feeling good is the drug of choice. And for centuries, we have turned to Black Dr. Feelgoods for our fixes. Many of these practitioners receive free rides on the cultural coattails of people saddled with an indoctrinated need to paper over their woes. Why do so many of us let our passions govern us so completely and predictably? Why have we set such a low bar of accountability for high profile buffoonery? Before exploring these questions, let's further examine what supports neo-coonery. There are four highlighted neo-coon dynamics. The first one is to laugh at leaders. Public venues filled with approving audiences have come to be safe places to tear down and demean Black people. We place comedians on pedestals and allow them to express sentiments that would be defined as racist or inappropriate if mouthed by whites. We strike a hands off bargain with Black comedians because we rely on them to express our frustrations about whites and publicly say things about Blacks that we quietly endorse. The joke's on us. Release of toxic and traumatic emotions through laughter. Comedy provides the safe avenue to strike back at whites and poke fun at Blacks, while it also unconsciously reinforces long held stereotypes about one another. See no evil. We are fearful of facing truths about the psychological damage that has resulted from centuries of systemized oppression. We resist questioning authority and of being labeled as stuck in the past. Such anxieties allow us to avoid honest self-examination, which discourages critical thinking. It's simply easier to laugh about what ails us than to face and address it. And lastly, assault with a funny weapon. The need to engage in the kind of self destructive, self debasing, and culturally demeaning humor that intensifies the damage done to our psyches and bolsters the myths perpetuated about our inherent inferiority. Constructing a fertile future from the fractured past is painful, tiresome work. Our craving to feel good now trumps our ability to think and prepare for the future. Far too many of us hunger for a salty, sugary, greasy, nutritionally deficient brain food pitched as tasty distractions, fantasy thinking that leaves the Black mind flabby and malnourished. Unresolved trauma leaves Black people today with a tremendous craving to feel better. Like Eveline, the wicked witch of the Wiz in the Wiz, we have one overriding wish. Don't nobody bring me no bad news. As we laugh and sing about helplessness, mediocrity, and mindlessness, The cycles of dysfunction roll on from one generation to the next. While distracted, the task of reprogramming ourselves to build strong, vibrant psyches with race based self esteem goes unattended. If we thoroughly examine the correlation between the neocon, forced captivity, and institutionalized oppression, we will better understand why we still subconsciously flip on the emotional switch that salves and subdues our painful past and uncomfortable existence. Our ignorance is their bliss, starts with a quote from Naim Akbar, who says, one of the primary forms of remaining in favor with the slave master by the slave was to provide entertainment for the master and his household. It is easy to observe that man exalts his superiority over lower animals by teaching them to do tricks and to be entertained by those tricks. Great favors of leniency and special rewards were given to the clowning slave. In spite of what we've absorbed, Black America's disproportionate preference for emotion over reason is not inborn. To control slaves and maintain a system of racial superiority, it was imperative to block all pathways to critical analysis. Because if we critically analyzed our situation, we would be as violent as they think we are. But anyway, proponents of the systematized Black inferiority brand campaign outlawed education, stifled public dialogue, and employed other psychological restrictions to convince Blacks of their own helplessness. Our ignorance was necessary to maintain the slaveholders' security. It was key to the creation of a product that was to be branded and marketed walking, talking human chattel without the uniquely human ability to think and reason. So it is a vestige of our enslavement that we play on and respond more frequently to our emotions and emotional stimuli versus logic. Although slave owners worked tirelessly to snuff out any semblance of slave thinking, they couldn't control their captives' feelings. Harsh reality could not be changed, but it could be endured with prayer, eased with song, and smothered with laughter. Emotion became the slave's only succor from fear, sorrow, and hopelessness. Slaves found sustenance in the nuggets of amusement and emotional discharge, singing, dancing, laughing, and praying. The entertainment component of Negro culture, as author Charles Keel coined it, is the one area in Negro life that was clearly not stripped away or obliterated by slavery. In many ways, we were forced to become idiot savants of emotion. We are exceptionally gifted but incredibly disabled. Our overdeveloped ability to express feelings is at the expense of our ability to think and engage critically. Emotional release through music, joking, and religion understandably became a critical part of our survival. Reliance on our emotions helped us survive turbulent times. Such reliance was not, however, supposed to be a permanent substitute for thinking as independent, sentient beings. It was a defense mechanism our ancestors triumphantly used to express their artistry and their staunch commitment to survive. One of our greatest gifts, our instincts, That gut sense of what was good or bad, safe or dangerous, harmful or helpful, has been systematically anesthetized and blunted. Originally, we used humor to keep the master from knowing what we were thinking. Today, we use humor to avoid thinking altogether. The real question here is whether or not our instinct for survival has been brainwashed away. Singing Away the Blues starts with a quote from James Bolton, who was a former slave. Slave folks sung almost all the time, but we didn't think that we sang much. We just got happy and started singing. Sometimes we would sing if and we felt sad and low down, but soon as we could, we would go off where we could go to sleep and forget all about trouble. The seemingly insurmountable reality of slavery produced long standing coping and communication mechanisms within our psyches. What he's saying here is we were epigenetically changed because of our enslavement process, because we survived our enslavement. Slaves existed in a perverted realm of two-ness, wrote W.E.B. Du Bois. The scholar meticulously defined the contradictory state of double consciousness, where blacks saw themselves reflected by a world which yields him no true self consciousness, but only lets him see himself through the revelation of the other world. Escape from that other world was virtually impossible. Therefore, slaves learned to cope within it, creating and clinging to any morsel of humanity, dignity, and hope. For many, entertainment became the barricade against painful reality. Music, for instance, was a form of expression slave owners welcomed and exploited. Singing, dancing slaves complemented the white man's illusion of happy servitude. Humor also served as one of our only means of redress, relief, and refuge. As Mel Watkins noted in his book, On the Real Side, A History of African American Comedy from Slavery to Chris Rock, comedy has always been the quiet equalizer against the notion of inferiority and a means to stave off the brutality of slavery. No master could be thoroughly comfortable around a sullen slave, and conversely, a master, unless he was utterly humorless, could not overwork or brutally treat a jolly fellow, one who could make him laugh. Strangely, after 144 years of freedom, humor for many African Americans still serves as an outlet for frustration and as a means to get back at perceived enemies. Author Glenda Carpio, in her book Laughing, Fit to Kill, Black Humor in the Fictions of Slavery, writes about the Black comedians who have attempted to flip the script on our tragic past. Harvard Magazine cited an example from Carpio's book where she recalled comedian Dave Chappelle's parody of the slave Kunta Kinte from the 1977 miniseries Roots. As Kunta, he receives an interminable lashes for refusing his new slave name. But just as the lashing begins to become unbearable, Chappelle's Kunta suddenly frees himself from the post to which he was tied, runs to the overseer, and proceeds to beat him. "What did I tell you about getting out of hand?" yelled Chappelle, turning his back to reveal the thick padding that protected him from the lashes all along. Sadly, some comedians have commandeered roles that have nothing to do with comic relief, at least not for Black people. Unbeknownst to them, they have extended a genre crafted long, long ago to keep us psychologically at the back of the bus. Funding coons. In 1896, a man by the name of Ernest Hogan made his fame and most of his fortune when he wrote, "All coons look alike to me. All coons look alike to me. I've got another beau, you see, and he's just as good to you as me, nig, I ever tried to be." Think of this as the multi platinum, Grammy Award winning mega pop hit of its day. Some say it was one of music's first million sellers. It soon became a standard in every popular band's repertoire. Suddenly, Ernest Hogan, who was already a seasoned comedian, singer, and dancer, became a superstar of the new genre called ragtime. Coon songs were already proven crowd pleasers. Hogan just made the most of it. After all, white blackface stars like TJ Daddy Rice, the original Jim Crow, and George Washington Dixon, also known as Zip Coon, weren't simply riding the coon song bandwagon, they were driving it. Who could blame a talented young Irishman from capitalizing on the craze? Well, what about a talented young Black man? Hogan's real name wasn't even Hogan. It was Reuben Crowder's, and he was colored as the Sunday Funnies. As catchy as his little ditty was, Crowder Hogan's dubious distinction was that he not only wrote a hit song, his title became a catchphrase that would hound members of his race, himself included, to this very day. "All coons look alike to me" gave whites and blacks a handy all purpose put down to whip out for any and all occasions. Even though it's been written that Hogan regretted his contribution to coonery until the day he died, he also tried to justify it, as his successors do today, by claiming that it helped employ many other Black composers, singers, and dancers. I tell Crowder Hogan's long forgotten tale not because I want to add to his posthumous pain, but because it's relevant to today's comedians and to this discussion. The Minstrel Show. Although music, merchandise, media, and theatrical and literary efforts reinforced insidious Black stereotypes, nothing was as effective and as long lasting as the phenomenon of minstrelsy. The humor delivered through this genre served to validate Black oppression and inferiority. Whites attending the shows were made to feel superior as they listened and laughed at nigger dialect and representations of buffoonish, inept Negroes who loved plantation life. After the Civil War, many former slaves expressed their newfound independence by taking over the lucrative but demeaning minstrelly business. The cooning of African America was just another phase of the massive marketing campaign to reinforce the idea of Black inferiority. Not only did it never stop, it morphed into more sophisticated, pervasive, and insidious forms. I went, into what I call Hogan's neo-coon heroes, blacks who dominate the airwaves, stages, and television screens of our nation in an endless cakewalk through the African American psyche. Why was Hogan so successful? Why, more than 100 years after he died, are today's Hogans still so lavishly rewarded? Hogan's success helps us understand the contemporary marketing that leads us to adore many of today's biggest stars who promote similar demeaning portrayals of Black people. It explains why today's comedians can joke about their pimp like abilities, their sexual prowess, their pitiful baby's daddy, their crackhead friends, or welfare mamas. Hogan's hit demonstrates how adhering to and extending on a known brand identity, which was originally created to justify and market racial slavery, remains a sure path to fame and fortune for many of today's comedic descendants. What's so funny, nigga? Over the past century, the coon concept, instead of dying with slavery, has spread like a virus far beyond its black-faced minstrel music hall origin. Although many of its most visible promoters today have black bodies as well as faces, they still seem to have the same disregard for themselves as did their painted progenitors. After clownish TV shows like Amos and Andy were taken off the air, we continued the tradition of self deprecation with an even more toxic, black generated comic fodder, as Bill Cosby and Dr. Alvin F. Poussaint observe in their book, Come On People, On the Path from Victims to Victors, where they said, after Hollywood had put most of the silly or ugly stereotypes behind it, it began resurrecting them. Many black sitcoms from the 90s reverted to buffoonish stereotypes, and black comedians prospered on cable, making liberal use of the N word. In the world of music videos and their movie spin offs, the images grew uglier still. It's clear that humor and comedy served a purpose for the black slave. It was a way to share hard times and hard truths. It sometimes saved them from the lash or from insanity. But was it insanity endured or insanity deferred? What is sane about watching hour after hour of nigga laced skits on black stand up comedy shows? As we laugh along with the jokes, we subliminally notice the underlying notion that niggas aren't equipped to control their lives. An audience of niggas can't possibly walk away determined to challenge the historical woes hidden in the jokes. Jabari Assim, author of The N Word, Who Can Say It, Who Shouldn't, and Why, has little patience with rappers and comedians who insist that they have redefined the N word and taken the negativity out of it. Its contemporary usage, Assim says, is nothing more than a linguistic extension of white supremacy, differing little from the days of slavery. Some young entertainers today defend their actions with the claim that we must always keep it real. I contend that in our brainwashed state, we have no idea what real or simply part of propaganda, what's real or what's simply part of propaganda campaigns designed to make Black inferiority a permanent reality. Driven to distraction. Ironically, the people who created the conditions that led to African Americans' insatiable need for diversion are the same people who benefit most from today's mindless amusement. The disproportionate underpinning of emotionally driven entertainment component of African American culture is evident in the fact that in 2003, African Americans watched 23.7 more hours of television on week per week than the average white viewer, for an average of 76.8 hours per week, according to Initiative Media. It's not just an issue of the amount of TV watched, it's also about the quality of what we watched. The five shows ranked highest among the Black television viewers between August 2008 and October 2009 are American Idol, The House of Pain, Meet the Browns, American Idol on Tuesday nights, and Dancing with the Stars. Those shows, with the inclusion of CSI Miami and the rowdy talk show Maury Povich, rounded out the top 10 shows in the same period. In other words, it's a safe bet that Black folk are not significantly driving up the viewership on PBS or C SPAN. Of course, today's slick Black inferiority complex comes with a highly polished veneer of glamour, sophistication, sly humor, false fervor, and specious symbolism that conceals blatant psychological fratricide. Yet, with our historical microscope in hand, we can clearly see the roots of this campaign. Neocoons, connecting the dots, laughing leaders, contemporary manifestations. Public venues filled by approving audiences are safe places to demean Black people. Popular Black comedians who express sentiments that would otherwise be defined as inappropriate and racist. Black entertainers benefit from our hands off policy because they express our frustration about whites and endorse our negative feeling about Blacks. The historical roots? The minstrel or the funny man was an elevated figure within the Black community. He transmuted our pain through the feel good moment, which was our primary medicine then and now. Laugh factor. Release of toxic and traumatic emotions through laughter. Comedy provides a safe avenue to strike back at whites, but also reinforces negative stereotypes of Blacks. The historical roots. Slaves understood that laughter was a protective factor against severe punishment. If we amused the master, we might escape harm. Powerless at the time to hurt whites, we relished the opportunity to participate in hilarious verbal retribution. Comedy provided the opportunity to be clever, creative, and intellectual without deadly repercussions. The contemporary manifestations of See No Evil. Fear of facing truths about the psychological damage caused by centuries of oppression, we are reluctant to challenge oppression and discrimination or being labeled as stuck in the past. Such anxieties lead us to avoid honest self examination, which also discourages critical thinking. The historical roots. Slavery and racial oppression were painful and traumatic. The natural inclination of the human mind is to repress pain, suffering, and trauma. A history of powerlessness has conditioned us to tolerate and stop questioning that which we feel we cannot control. assault with a funny weapon, contemporary manifestation, self destructive, self debasing, and culturally demeaning humor intensifies the damage done to our psyches and bolsters the myths perpetuated by our inherent inferiority. Historical roots. Brainwashed to hate ourselves, we were taught to admire those who taught us to laugh at our inferiority. They joke about our innate deficiencies, and then we followed suit, ridiculing and demeaning ourselves through humor. Resolve to be better starts with a quote from Richard Pryor on his decision to stop using the N word. To this day, I wish I'd never said the word. I felt its lameness. It was misunderstood by people. They didn't get what I was talking about. Honestly, neither did I. So I vowed I would never say it again. While discussing resolutions as a guest on the January 12, 2007 Tavis Smiley show, Dr. Cornell West encouraged Blacks to become more critically informed, to be able to partake in something grander than us. He urged that Blacks ask themselves what they can do for God, for justice, for freedom, for equality. There is no question that there is a pressing need for us to do better, be better. However, what West recommends seems far beyond the reach of a race still laboring under the influence of a trauma that remains untreated because the diagnosis is not yet public. We think we're joking and laughing at a script of our own design. Instead, we have swallowed a fallacy. The fact is that the script was actually written by those who control the media. They have been clever enough to write it for us, feed it to us, and have us deliver it for them, completely oblivious to the fact that there's nothing new, nothing bold, and nothing authentic about it. To get to that healthy place of critical reflection and concerted action, we must first untwist the thread of historical brainwashing. This step automatically leads us to reevaluate our addiction to the laughing, singing, or smack talking neo-coon. There are some pros and cons to the neo-coon. There are short-term benefits, but long-term costs. Laugh leader. We're lucky to have comedian entertainers who help ease our emotional woes. Yes, they can be demeaning and destructive, but it's a small price to pay to avoid confronting our pain. The long term decision. When comedians define us culturally as spokespersons, we risk endorsing any demeaning act. Dependence makes us vulnerable to emotional manipulation. Reliance on outside forces, as funny as they may be, is part of the Black inferiority campaign designed to blunt critical thinking. The short term benefits of laugh factor. It's best to laugh off the pain. Comedy is our weapon. It allows us to lash out at whites and poke fun at Black folks. If anybody gets mad, we can just say, hey, it's a joke. But there are some long term costs associated with that decision. Comedy is not a weapon, it's a temporary fix. Laughing at pain only prolongs the pain. Lashing out at whites and making fun of Blacks is no joke. In communal settings, it only validates the status quo. The suppression of anger and frustration prevents us from moving toward self love and empowered action. The short term benefits of see no evil. No one wants to hear our gripes about racism or oppression. We can cope better if we pretend there has been no psychological damage caused by systematized oppression. Scrutinizing and attacking what's considered funny will only lead to more depression and a greater need for relief. The long term costs. Ignoring systematized oppression or pretending it doesn't exist won't change reality or bring peace of mind. Questioning authority is an adult's prerogative and part of critical thinking. To be labeled as stuck in the past devalues our history. No other culture is encouraged to forget its history. The short term benefits of assault with a funny weapon. It feels good to attack Black folks with humor. Laughter takes some of the vindictiveness away. Although we share criticisms whites have about some blacks, comedy gives us an out. The fact that we can say, I'm only kidding, separates us from the racists who hate Black people. The long term benefits of that decision, the need to validate criticisms whites have about Blacks, even through humor, is a reflection of inferiority brainwashing. To say, I'm only kidding, doesn't separate anyone from the racist. It validates racist perceptions. Complicit laughter not only condones the stereotype, it adds an element of truth to negatives designed to demean, belittle, and oppress Black people. Destroying our inner coon. According to the news media, comedian Dave Chappelle had clearly lost his mind when he walked away from the Chappelle Show and his reported $50 million contract. As a guest on the Oprah Winfrey Show in 2006, Chappelle attempted to set the record straight. He left the show, Chappelle said, because he had gotten tired of playing the socially irresponsible roles. I felt like some kind of prostitute or something. Chappelle seems to have recognized the fine line between neocoonery and dignity and took steps to break the psychological cycle. It takes guts to recognize symptoms of deep rooted ailments, especially when it means sacrificing a life of emotional and financial reward. Chappelle's act of defiance underscores this chapter's mission. We have identified the age old game of manipulated inferiority, the genesis of our entertainment addiction, and the quick fix provided by the unwitting neocoon. Now is the time to defeat the forces that promote our communal affliction. This is not a call to rebuke entertainers. I'm calling for a psychological revolution and the destruction of our inner coons, a planned reprogramming process designed to reshape our receptors to block Black inferiority conditioning, no matter how funny the jokes may seem. This process comes complete with positive propaganda tools. No neocoon positive propaganda cues. Stand up against put downs. When a joke reinforces negative attitudes and behaviors, it is harmful. When you realize that the joke is harmful, speak up or tune it out. I'll add, stop going to comedy shows altogether. Just stop it. Stop yucking and jiving. For those people who have the stage, don't fan the flames of Black inferiority propaganda. Don't laugh to keep from thinking. Don't use laughter to avoid dealing with important racial issues. Laugh at your own risk. Some jokes actually do hurt and reinforce existing internalized feelings of Black inferiority. Once we shift our loyalty and our dollars and place comedy and entertainment in their proper perspective, we no longer follow the lead of misguided celebrities. Disturbing messages may not seem so funny once they are strained through the newly implanted critical thinking filters. The last word: the media is powerful. Those in the business of making people laugh are also powerful. We have an abundance of creative, hardworking, charismatic Black personalities. I am confident they can produce material that makes people laugh without being destructive or chipping away at our self-esteem. In her 20 in her 2009 HBO special I'ma Be Me, Wanda Sykes presented about 90 minutes of observational humor on politics, anti gay legislation, personal relationships, getting older, and erectile dysfunction ads without a hint of Black inferiority complex inspired self degradation. We must also challenge Black Hollywood to step outside the parameters that keep us seesawing between buffoonery and pathology. Black comedians can rise to the challenge, and it's our job as the audience to recognize and reward those who do the right thing and hold accountable those who don't. For those who tell the joke and for those who listen, the litmus test should be: does this move us forward? Does this move us backward? Does this keep us in the same place and in the same brainwashed state? Given the severity of our situation, it is vital that we work to have more in the move us forward category. I'm asking all African Americans who've been blessed with the combination of luck, talent, and tenacity that put them in positions of influence to really think about what we've discussed here and their parts in perpetuating the idea of inferiority and to change. As our griots have said, once you know better, you have to do better. And that is the end of chapter 11. I think it's interesting that these neocoons, these new wave comedians, these new people that are making Black people the butt of the joke was the subject that he tried to highlight in this chapter. I think that we have to be real about our celebrity class. They have betrayed us. Our celebrity class is not loyal to the Black masses. Our celebrity class is loyal to their economic empowerment and to their own economic benefit. And we have to get to the point where we understand that they are not our leaders, they are not an example, they are not anything that we should follow or that we should put up as an example for ourselves or our children. The only thing we can study about them is perhaps in some instances their tenacity when it came to their success. That would be something to be studied or to be modeled. But all the other benefits, all the other things they do, not at all. Not at all. I will be back next week. The author has in chapter 12, which is the final chapter, he has a set of solutions. He has a set of solutions. And at the end of every chapter, he has basically highlighted the fact that we need to have better propaganda that we use to influence the masses. We need to have better propaganda propaganda that we use to influence the masses. I want to thank KW Don 7 and Sister Raw for being here so much. I thank you for listening to me and my opinions about these books. As the authors of these books continue to enhance and enrich and broaden our minds, I would like each and every one of us to think, what are we doing in our personal lives to build a future for our children, for our nieces and nephews, for the child next door down the street, the next Black generation? Are we putting something out there that they can grab hold to, that they will be able to build upon or use as a building block? Sister Raw, you are very welcome for the readings. I think that there is a lot of truth in the books I choose to read to you all. Greetings, Afro Native. What book is next? There will be a poll up on my there will be a poll up on my community tab. There's the invention of the Jews. There's niggas to gods. There's something else. I forgot the third book, but it's by the guy that just passed away, Kunjufu. So there are three books that you'll get a chance to pick from. And I hope you will participate in my poll and let me know what you would like to hear next. I value each and every one of you for being here. I want to thank KW Don 7, Sister Ron, the elders that listen with you, and Afro Native World. I know that Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast is listening. I know that Forecast from the Forecast Radio is listening. I know that Bakari from the Black Business Network is listening. I know that Onita Se from the Pro Black Perspective is listening. I also know that Bwana Haguziki, Dorico Cooper, and you, and you, yes, you, Manning for Mayor, and others are listening. I appreciate and value your input, your insight. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I try really hard to keep it to an hour. Please remember to take part in the poll. It'll be up tomorrow. And on Tuesday, we'll be back reading The American Slave Coast. We have just gotten confirmation that Thomas Jefferson was definitely the enemy from within, and that he supported seditionists. He supported the French when Washington wanted to partner and ally with Britain. He was the enemy from within. And he was the main progenitor of making our enslavement as Africans in the Americas the way that most white people would make their wealth. He was the main progenitor of that for after the Revolutionary War. All right. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. I will be back on Tuesday. I will see you all then. Peace, guys.